Hello, my love. I hope you are doing well. Last we left off in the Lay of Lúthien, Beren and Lúthien returned to Menegroth and were finally wed by King Thingol. At the same time, Karkaroth, driven mad by the Silmaril in his stomach, was able to break through the girdle of Melian and is wreaking havoc in Doriath. And now I continue on page 20 for the final part of the tale of Beren and Lúthien. Therefore, since daily Karkaroth drew nearer to Menegroth, they prepared the hunting of the wolf. Of all pursuits of beasts whereof tales tell, the most perilous. To that chase went Huan, the hound of Valinor, and Mablung of the heavy hand, who survived an encounter with Karkaroth, and Beleg Strongbow, who would later be the closest friend of Turin Turambar, a human hero. Beren Camion, the one-handed, and Thingol, king of Doriath, a true all-star cast. They rode forth in the morning and passed over the river Esgaldwin, but Lúthien remained behind at the gates of Menegroth. A dark shadow fell upon her, and it seemed to her that the sun sickened and turned black. The hunters turned east and north, and following the course of the river, they came at last upon Karkaroth, the wolf, in a dark valley, down the northern side whereof Esgaldwin fell in a torrent over steep falls. At the foot of the falls, Karkaroth drank to ease his consuming thirst, and he howled. And thus they were aware of him. But he, espying their approach, rushed not suddenly to attack them. It may be that the devil's cunning awoke in his heart, being for a moment eased of his pain by the sweet waters of Esgaldwin. And even as they rode towards him, he slunk aside into a deep brake, and there lay hid. But they set a guard all about that place and waited, and the shadows grew long in the forest. Beren stood beside Thingol, and suddenly they were aware that Huan had left their side. Then a great baying awoke in the thicket, for Huan, becoming impatient and desiring to look upon this wolf, had gone in alone to dislodge him. But Karkaroth avoided him, and bursting from the thorns, leaped suddenly upon Thingol. Swiftly Beren strode before him with a spear, but Karkaroth swept it aside and felled him, biting at his breast. In that moment Huan leapt from the thicket upon the back of the wolf, and they fell together, fighting bitterly. And no battle of wolf and hound has been like to it, for in the baying of Huan was heard the voice of the horns of Orome, god of the hunt, and the wrath of the Valar. But in the howls of Karkaroth was the hate of Morgoth, and malice crueler than teeth of steel. And the rocks were rent by their clamor, and fell from on high, and choked the falls of Esgaldwin. There they fought to the death, but Thingol gave no heed, for he knelt by Beren, seeing that he was sorely hurt. Page 21. Huan in that hour slew Carcharoth, but there in the woven woods of Doriath his own doom long spoken was fulfilled, and he was wounded mortally, and the venom of Morgoth entered into him. Then he came, and falling beside Beren, spoke for the third time with words, and he bade Beren farewell before he died. Beren spoke not, but laid his hand upon the head of the hound, and so they parted. Mablung and Beleg came hastening to the king's aid, but when they looked upon what was done, they cast aside their spears and wept, wept, wept. Then Mablung took a knife and ripped up the belly of the wolf, and within he was well nigh all consumed with a fire, but the hand of Beren that held the jewel was yet incorrupt. But when Mablung reached forth to touch it, the hand was no more, and the Silmaril lay there unveiled, and the light of it filled the shadows of the forest all about them. Then quickly and in fear Mablung took it and set it in Beren's living hand, and Beren was aroused by the touch of the Silmaril, and held it aloft, and bade Thingol receive it. "Now is the quest achieved," he said, "and my doom full wrought." And he spoke no more. To Quenya, the speaking people, the elves, speaking no more is a big deal. They bore back Beren Camlost, son of Barahir, upon a bier of branches, with Huan the wolfhound at his side, and the night fell ere they returned to Menegroth. At the feet of Hirilorn, the great beech, Lúthien met them walking slow, and some bore torches beside the bier. Then she set her arms about Beren and kissed him, bidding him await her beyond the western sea. And he looked upon her eyes ere the spirit left him. But the starlight was quenched, and darkness had fallen even upon Lúthien Tenuviel. Thus ended the quest of the Silmaril, but the lay of Lúthien, release from bondage, does not end. For the spirit of Beren at her bidding tarried in the halls of Mandos, unwilling to leave the world, until Lúthien came to say her last farewell upon the dim shores of the outer sea, whence men that die set out never to return. But the spirit of Lúthien fell down into darkness, and at the last it fled, and her body lay like a flower that is suddenly cut off, and lies for a while unwithered upon the grass. Then a winter, as it were the hoar age of mortal men, fell upon Thingol. But Lúthien came to the halls of Mandos, where are the appointed places of the Eldali, beyond the mansions of the west, upon the confines of the world. There those that wait sit in the shadow of their thought, but her beauty was more than their beauty, and her sorrow deeper than their sorrows, and she knelt before the Lord of Mandos, and sang to him. The song of Lúthien before Mandos was the song most fair that ever in words was woven, and the song most sorrowful that ever the world shall hear. Unchanged, imperishable, it is still sung in Valinor beyond the hearing of the world. And listening, the Valar are grieved, for Lúthien wove two themes of words, of the sorrow of the Eldar and the grief of the men, the two kindreds that were made by Ilúvatar to dwell in Arda, the kingdom of earth amid the innumerable stars. And she knelt before him, and as she knelt before him, her tears fell upon his feet like rain upon the stones, and Mandos was moved to pity, who never before was so moved, nor has been since. Therefore he summoned Beren, and even as Lúthien had spoken into the hour of his death, they met again beyond the western sea. But Mandos had no power to withhold the spirits of men that were dead within the confines of the world, after their time of waiting, nor could he change the fates of the children of Ilúvatar. He went, therefore, to Manwë, lord of the Valar, who governed the world under the hand of Ilúvatar, and Manwë sought counsel in his inmost thought, where the will of Ilúvatar was revealed. These were the choices he gave to Lúthien. Because of her labors and her sorrow, she would be released from Mandos and go to Valimar, there to dwell until the world's end among the Valar, forgetting all griefs that her life had known. Thither Beren could not come, for it was not permitted to the Valar to withhold death from him, which is the gift of Ilúvatar to men. But the other choice was this, that she might return to Middle-earth, and take with her Beren to dwell again, but without certitude of life or joy. Then she would become mortal, and subject to a second death, even as he, and ere long she would leave the world forever, and her beauty become only a memory in song. This doom she chose, forsaking the blessed realm, and putting aside all claim to kinship with those that dwelt there, that thus whatever grief might lie in wait, the fates of Beren and Lúthien might be joined, and their paths lead together beyond the confines of the world. So it was that alone of the Eldale she has died indeed, and left the world long ago. Yet in her choice the two kindreds have been joined, and she is the forerunner of many in whom the Eldar see yet, though all the world is changed, the likeness of Lúthien, the beloved, whom they have lost. The end of their tale, at least. The first paragraph of the next chapter begins. It is said that Beren and Lúthien returned to the northern lands of Middle-earth and dwelt together for a time as living man and woman, and they took up again their mortal form in Doriath. Those that saw them were both glad and fearful, and Lúthien went to Menegroth and healed the winter of Thingol with the touch of her hand. But Melion looked in her eyes and read the doom that was written there, and turned away, for she knew that a parting beyond the end of the world had come between them, and no grief of loss has been heavier than the grief of Melion the Maya in that hour. Then Beren and Lúthien went forth alone, fearing neither thirst nor hunger, and they passed beyond the river Gelion into Osiriand, the land of 7 rivers, and dwelt there in Tol Galan, the Green Isle, in the midst of Adurant, until all tidings of them ceased. The Eldar afterwards called that country Dor Fionn Iguinar, the land of the dead that live, and there was born Dior Aranel the beautiful, who was after known as Dior Alukiel, which is Thingol's heir. No mortal man spoke ever again with Beren, son of Barahir, and no one saw Beren or Lúthien leave the world, or marked where at last their bodies lay. What peace, what joy, what sacrifice. In order to get everything you want, you have to get everything you want. Until later, my love. Let me know after hearing this if you ever want me to read you another tale again.